Welcome to the second ever podcast episode of Inside the Box. Today, you just have me and the other Chris. I'm Chris Ferrante, and this is Chris Courteau to my right. And Vitor, our stat guy, couldn't be with us today, but we're going to still give you a little show. And we'll kick it off with kind of how things recapped like over the last half week since last time we chatted. The Bruins went on a little skid, but have since rebounded with their 4-1 win over the New York Rangers, two of back-to-back meetings, which was Sunday, and then prior to that was Friday, which they were blown out 6-2, and then prior was to the Islanders 7-2 the day before on Thursday. And so, I mean, how do you feel about the thing? Like, were you worried about like the skid initially, or you think it was just kind of every team goes through it and we're back?
I mean, like, we were coming all the way back from California, and the team's probably not used to like road trips and shit yet coming back from the break, because like, yeah, you still like move around the East Coast, but it's not like going all the way across country to like West Coast to go to Tahoe and come back. Like, I feel like guys have to get used to that as the season gets going. So I feel like you have a little bit of like a Lake Tahoe hangover there is probably the biggest deal. And plus we had a hard time with the Islanders already, didn't we? We already lost to them.
We already lost them like 3 times. No.
Yeah, so I mean, like, the Islanders are one of those teams. It's like we have Philly's number, the Islanders have our number so far. We just got to figure out a way how to, play against them and beat them. So, but that's, I mean, I'm not worried. We're a pretty good team. Like, we've been doing pretty good. Like, those games are just obviously the result of like I said, coming back from like a big weekend at Lake Tahoe, having some big injuries like Krejci and some of our defensive guys. So I feel like it's nothing that's going to really hold us back for too long. The Bruins are going to get back on track soon.
Yeah, I think you need some of those games too to like kind of handle the whole season. Like, we were off to a really good start, and then we had 2 kind of blowout games like that. Usually Brandon Carlo was like, I think, saying in the interview, he kind of called the team out. He's like, this doesn't happen to us and shouldn't be happening. And every team goes through it. Like, it happens, obviously, but I think it's good to get these kind of blowout losses out of the way pretty quickly. That way, it's like we don't have to worry about in the future, towards the end of the season, start getting on a losing streak, and then going into the playoffs, you're kind of screwed, because it was during Pittsburgh's, I think, the 2016 run. They went on like a huge win streak right at the end of the regular season, right into the playoffs, and carried it on from there and stuff too.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of funny to see how it works like in the league, and especially now with the new divisions to some degree, because I mean, we've always kind of been owning the Islanders over the last several years now and stuff. But if you think back to the Bruins days where like Lucic was still here and Nathan Horton, like the in between, I want to say like the 2012 seasons and like the 2014-15 seasons especially, we always would lose to Buffalo when they were in the bottom of the standings. Like, they would somehow like always put up a tough game against us and beat us. Even like the President Trophy winning 2014 season, we would have a tough time with them. We'd be beating teams that were like just under us in the standings, whether it be like Montreal that year, or just trying to think back who was good back then, like even Anaheim when they were like strong in LA, getting stronger, and even Pittsburgh to some degree. And so it's just, but then you had a team like Buffalo, who at the time was like really struggling, and they would just like beat us and make kind of like in a playoff type format for those games. And so it's like the Islanders are turning that around against us too. I mean, Pittsburgh's having trouble with the Islanders right now too. I mean, they had a good game where they came back and won, luckily, fortunately, but like, it seems like the Islanders are kind of like we talked about last year, like how New Jersey can kind of be like the upset team, because they're still on the up and coming. They're not like where the Islanders kind of are getting now. But,
yeah.
It's like they have that. Both those teams have like that unique ability, because they both have strong coaches. Barry Trotz has won at the highest level, Stanley Cup with the Capitals, and then even Lindy Ruff, he has also like been to a high level as a coach. Now he's like leading New Jersey and stuff. So it's like, these teams, like, yeah, sure, they're kind of like finding an identity or something, especially the Islanders after losing Tavares a few seasons ago. But it's the coaching that definitely helps that and stuff. And so I think, I think we'll be able to get out of it. I don't think it's like that bad of a streak. Losing 2 back-to-back happens, especially on back-to-back nights too. It can happen. So getting that 4-1 win on Sunday was huge. And tomorrow they'll be playing Washington for 2 games, Wednesday and Friday. So,
well, going back to the whole the Islanders thing too. I mean, you got like the Islanders are a tough team to play against. Obviously, I mean, like they swept the the Penguins coming off of what was that, 2019 when that
I think
happened?
2 seasons ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was 2 seasons ago, coming out of Penguins won in 2017, right?
16 and 17. Yeah.
16 and 17. So last time Penguins win is 2017. You're two years removed from that, and I mean, how many of those guys from that the key the central
their core.
Yeah, their core players. Their core players. How many guys are you really losing from that core of your team within 2 years?
Oh yeah,
not a ton.
I mean, since the 2009 season, they only have the 3 left: Malkin, Crosby, and Letang, and so that's their core.
Yeah,
but you're right. They haven't lost a lot, but I mean, the biggest kind of detriment was losing Phil Kessel in that trade and stuff, and so. At the time, a lot of people hated it. I mean, because you had I'm trying to remember who was parts of the trade now, but one of the upsides for Pittsburgh is they got Pierre-Olivier Joseph, or Olivier Joseph, P.O. Joseph as they call him, Pojo. But he was one of the prospects coming back from Arizona in that deal. So it's worked out for him. He's his older brother Matthew is in Tampa Bay and stuff. So hopefully. He's been looking good. I've been watching some of those Penguins national games and stuff, and it's just kind of good to kind of see that their prospects building a little bit more. Because I mean, obviously they've changed with Rutherford. He's gone. He's resigned now, but he was a great GM. A lot of people have given him flack recently. I mean, even after the time, you have great GMs make mistakes like Chiarelli. He brought us the 2011 team and the 13 finalists, but made some bad signings, some bad deals. People thought. Same with Rutherford, but I mean, because they really don't have any first-round picks in the near future, or haven't for a while, and they keep trading them to get these players.
Well, that's what you give up to get to the Stanley Cup, though. That's one of the big things, and I don't think a lot of people realize that. It's what do you want to do? Do you want to win a cup now? Do you want to win a cup for the next 2 seasons with guys that you can get right now, or do you want to invest in your future? It's this balance that every sport has to kind of deal with when you're running a team and you're making a team. You have to deal with, do I want to invest in the future, or do I want to put all my chips in and win it right now with what I have and what I can get? And maybe, just maybe, I'll be able to sign a deal with these guys that I get. But if they want to go somewhere else, that's something I'm willing to gamble if I feel like this team can go all the way. And for Pittsburgh, it worked. It worked for a long time, and now we're kind of seeing the after effects where you have an aging team, not a lot of first-round picks. Crosby's getting older. Crosby's getting beat up after all those concussions, all those injuries. Malkin was out for a lot of last season. It's just all piling up to the point where you're going to see this Penguins team start going down the rankings. And I think probably one of the biggest catalysts for that was that sweep by the Islanders 2 years ago. That was brutal to watch.
It was a shock. Everyone was kind of shocked, I think, about it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's no discredit to the Islanders team. I mean, they have Anders Lee. He's a big, strong dude. He's a good. It's what I like to see in a forward, is a guy who's big, who's tough, who can throw hits.
Net front presence is huge with his
net
game.
Front presence. He can score. That's big on teams still. A lot of people appreciate more of the skill aspect of hockey. When you think of good players on the Islanders, the first player in your mind is going to go straight to Barzal.
Yeah.
But having someone who can be physical in a contact sport like this is very, very important, especially a physical player who can score goals.
Yeah, I think just as fast as the league's getting, you still need that power with the up front. It's worked out with Nick Ritchie. He's finally finding his game in that sense. We talked a little bit about too, but yeah, getting back to what you were saying about with Pittsburgh, it's they had they'd always been beating Washington, usually in the second round. Not always, but that's kind of the equivalent of Boston, Toronto first round. It's Pittsburgh and Washington second. And so after those 2 back-to-back cups, getting back to that, they lost. Washington finally beat them in 2018, and they went to win their cup. And so some people thought that was a rebuild. I was no, it happens. You can't win 3 straight. It hasn't happened since the Islanders, won all 4 in a row back then. And I think it's the closest thing was, I could be wrong, but I think the Oilers, when they went to 3 straight, it's they lost to the Islanders 4th time around, and then the Oilers went 2 more years straight after that, where they won 2. And so that was the last time I think that was 3 finalists, but like the last time that it was like 4 winners straight or 3 winners straight was like the late 70s Canadiens or like the early 80s Islanders. And then also getting back to like the whole getting older things too, and a huge I forget which source it was, probably one of the things I check out a lot is Puck Empire on NHL. They might have been the first to cover it, but Crosby was actually, I don't know if you know, saw it today, but he was just put on the COVID protocol list.
Oh yeah, I saw
so he's
that.
going to be out for a while, and so like that's going to be a big test for Pittsburgh right now because they're like them and the Islanders are the ones bouncing back and forth between the 4th and 5th seed, just because it's still really tight race, and it's going to be, I think, till the end. But this is going to test them, obviously, because like they've had their struggles at times. Letang is starting to find his game, which is, again, I know like they are my second favorite team, and my brother's favorite, so I watch them a lot, and like I like seeing like their star players succeed. Like usually, any casual fan while watching a sport, like you want to see stars succeed, and if you hate them, because they're just like it brings that rivalry and stuff. And so like Letang's finally starting to find his game after he had a rough start. Malkin had a rough start. He's starting to pick up a little bit more. Crosby has been probably one of the more consistent ones, but now he's out. So, and usually Malkin will take over and go like berserk when he, like, I mean, look what happened in the 2012 season when Crosby had all those concussions and was out for almost 2 years. Malkin had 51 goals in 2012, and he led the league in points, I believe, that year too. And so
I think that's one of the biggest parts of that like Pittsburgh team is just having those two pretty much be interchangeable. One gets hurt, the other one can take over.
Which is just so funny because it's just like it seems like Malkin a lot of the time is almost overshadowed by not playing on that first line. There were times like I think when they were struggling, whether it was the playoffs, like when we swept them in 2013, the Bruins, or if it was like other points, it's like maybe they should have considered like putting Malkin on top line for once and Crosby on the second, not out of disrespect, but just to like kind of get different line combos and stuff. Because any other team, Malkin would have been a first line center, and like he should have been, but the only reason is because Crosby, and like it's
a generational talent is kind of hard to beat.
Yeah, and then
no matter
Malkin
how good
himself
you are.
is, other than Ovechkin, they were the 2 generational talents of their draft.
Yeah,
and so I think this will be a good test for Malkin because I've always liked him. He is someone who gets angry a lot, and he can get really agitated a lot easier than Crosby can, actually. Crosby, I think since the sweep, everyone used to call him crybaby, but I think ever since Boston swept him, I think he started to come into his own and like mature a bit more, and like he was always like a leader to the team. They always complimented him being so young and so wise, but I think that woke him up, and he finally started getting a little bit more power and like kind of more elements to his leadership style of the game since then. And like so Malkin like is still a huge part of that team and like great player, like, but he's definitely like the one that if you're a team trying to beat the other team mentally, he's the one that you start with and stuff. And so I think now a lot of fans are questioning like if he still has it or if he's going to get traded. There's the rumors of all that. Obviously rumors usually don't amount to things, but even Gretzky was traded, the cliche saying goes. So I guess we'll see with all that. And then it's going to be a test for Malkin and Letang, especially Jake Gensel, like someone who kind of started off iffy, but still he's getting better. He's like, I think he has roughly, before I clown myself again, I want to fact check it, but I think he has something like 17 points through 20 games. I could be wrong, but I think it's those guys particularly that they got to step up and kind of see how they can respond. Yeah, he's got 7 goals, 10 assists in 20 games. So.
Yeah.
Not terrible, but definitely that's really good, actually. So it's hopefully all these players that Pittsburgh needs to start relying on now that Crosby's out can step it up for them if they want to keep their playoff streak. Because I, for sure, would much rather play Pittsburgh than the Islanders if it came to that first round, because that's kind of what it's looking like right now.
Yeah.
And so I would much rather that, definitely.
Speaking of Malkin and Ovi, want to talk about how Ovi's only got 6 goals so far over the course of the season?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's tough to see. As a guy who really loves Ovi, Caps are probably my second favorite team. So I love Ovi. I just love the way he plays. I love watching the guy score goals. It's probably the most fun thing to do to watch when you're seeing the Caps game. Is just watch him go up to his point and then just fire away. Like it's very few people do it like he does. I mean, yeah, seeing it live too. I got the chance to go see a couple of Bruins Caps games live. I actually saw the game where Ovi knocked Chara into the away bench. That was seeing that live. That was awesome. But it's like it's sad to see. I want to see him get that goal scoring record, and I do think that he is able to do it like during his career. I just want to like this. Seeing him slow down is just kind of like scaring me because I feel like he should have more by now, considering all the games they played. They played 2 more games than us, I think.
Yeah, I can check for us.
We have like the exact same record, except they have 2 more overtime losses, I think.
Yeah, they've played 21 games. They're 12-5-4. We're 12-5-2.
Yeah, so they have pretty much the same record as us. How much is that? 24, you said? 24 games?
21 for them.
Oh, 21
and
for
19
them.
for us.
19. All right, so he said he's scored 6 goals in 21 games. That's if I'm a top tier goal scorer, that's kind of alarming for me. That's something that I want to like look at and see if I can like correct or if I can talk to the coach about or like.
Oh, he has
just
7 now, actually.
Oh, yeah, 7 now. 7. All right.
7 through 17 games. So he's 7. He's got 10 assists. He's 17 points in 17 games.
Yeah, I know, but
he's usually not the playmaker. That's
I never see
him
as the assist guy. That's my deal.
Yeah.
Like, that's just those stats like worry me. I'm worrying like as he's getting older, is that slipping away from him a little bit? Is the way that he plays starting to affect, just his overall like health or whatever? Is it getting harder on him to like keep taking those shots, keep like ripping it from the point and everything? I don't know.
And he's a big body too. He's a horse on the ice. Like he's a big man. Like he's 6'3", isn't he? Like he's 238, 240 almost.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge guy. And obviously like you usually have a little bit more strength to you because of that. But like if you do get hurt, like I think it wears and tears at you more because of that reason too. And like I don't want to forget that like it was Ovechkin, Orlov, Kuznetsov, and I forget who the 4th player was, but there was the 4 of them that had to like sit out like for a while because of the suspension of the league because of the COVID violation. So I think he missed 4 games. So like not as much as some of the others did, but like that's still like a impediment to the point where it kind of messes up your groove, especially when you start off pretty decent. And then he had like the game that they had, the high-scoring 80s feeling game against the Flames at Philly, where he had he had a lot of assists in that game. It was like nice passing plays. It like can obviously like throw off your kind of consistency in the sense where it's like heating up. Like you could still have like 17 points, 17 games, but if you're like missing like the momentum of consecutive things or something happens, you get older or like something's bothering you, it can definitely like affect it. And it's just I think he can do it too. He's at 713 goals, and it's just like to be at that level like nowadays, like sure he's been playing since he came in as like a 18, 19-year-old, but like it's very few and far between that we can talk about a modern contemporary player being close to breaking one of Gretzky's records. Yeah. Because that's how far ahead Gretzky was and stuff. And sure, everyone's like, oh, yeah, well, the goalies weren't as great back then. The pads were terrible. Yeah, they didn't know what butterfly was, and they kicked at every save that was on the ground and missed it half the time. So, like, that does help, like, your older players. But needless to say, those are still records that have to be broken. And the fact that, like, in this era where it's a lot harder to score, it's a lot harder to break away, like whether it's because players are faster than you on the back check and stop you, or if it's just because it's just a lot more intense of a game where you can't get as open. It's just that this shows like how talented this player is and stuff. And so it's just because I always like love pointing it out when I see it. Grab your phone for the calculator real quick because I'm always terrible with this. Ovi's got 1,295 points, so 1,295. Throw that in. And then with Crosby, he's got 1,281. So right there, what's that, 14 less points or whatever?
You said between Crosby and
Ovechkin.
How much? So Crosby has what?
He's got 1,281.
1,281. So yeah, that's 14.
Yeah. So because I said what, Ovi 1,295.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so if you take, so he's got 14 less points than Ovi. But here's the thing that like a lot of people kind of overlook and baffle me because like at surface level, people are like, oh, Ovi's better because he has more points. But if you look at games played, Ovechkin has 1,169 games played. Yeah. And Crosby has 1,001. So that's 168 less games, and he only has 14 points less. Like the fact that like when you let that sink in, like they're both the like face of the league and
Yeah.
stuff too. And so obviously 2 different position players, but everyone who's like, oh, like it's obvious it's Crosby, or oh, it's obvious it's Ovechkin because he has more points. It's just like, whether you're a hockey fan like of one team or another, to think that like you had that many games of Crosby's career like ruined because of those concussion things, it's like, how much more could this guy have done? Like, he's still got some years left in the tank, but the fact he's only 14 points behind Ovechkin and he's played almost 170 less games is just mind-boggling. And so it just puts the level that even these guys are at with each other. Like, it's just like they're well beyond anyone else playing.
So, here's my take on that, though. How many of those are goals for Ovi? It's 700 and what? 700 something. How many are assists for Crosby?
Well, that's the thing, too.
Yeah.
Because, I mean,
I feel
people argue, yeah, Crosby's always had a better team around him. But then again, like, Ovechkin has had his consistent Backstrom, who's always feeding him goals, too, which helps.
Yeah.
Crosby's played with a crap ton of wingers over the years. He hasn't had, like, a consistent winger for more than, like, since Kunitz left. Like, that was, like, his only consistent guy, per se. And so at least Ovi's had the consistency of having, like, Backstrom with him.
Yeah.
And, like, that's kind of helped his point streak, I think, because I think as much as he is great without it's awesome when you have a guy who can feed you the puck. So that's definitely helped. So, yeah, he has 713 for goals, and he's got 582 assists.
See, I feel like it's harder to it's easier to
Crosby
give a guy
has
a nice assist, like put it on a platter where he's wide open and you can score a goal. I feel like it's a little harder to put it behind the net like Ovi does. So.
Right, and then so Crosby has 812 assists and then 469 goals, and so he has 1,004 games played, so minus 4. He's played 164 less games.
Yeah,
get back to that. So, but yeah, and so also you factor in like secondary assists and stuff too. Like, sure, it's a little bit easy to get an assist, but at the same time, still, it's like you need to have perfect plays to make it work too.
Yeah.
And hot take, not even like related to this, but like when it comes to the NHL awards, I'm surprised there isn't an award for like most assists in the season.
Yeah.
Like, because you have most points overall, you have most goals overall, but it's like, why are you leaving out assists? Because
I'm sure they'll make a Crosby award or something.
At one point, when I used to play street hockey, we would do like a playoff series with my brother and our friends. And the first ever summer we decided to do that, we actually made like an aluminum Stanley Cup with like laundry baskets, like put tinfoil around it to make it look like a thing. But we also did immediate awards after that like series, which of course it ended up going 7 because we were so pretty even. And so I had made like the Ron Francis Award for most assists and stuff because I think that's what he made a lot of his living on, passing with the assists.
Yeah.
So you could either call it like the Gretzky Award, the Ron Francis Award, or like the Sidney Crosby, like, or something. Because how many of those would Joe Thornton have won by now if they actually made that award? Because he used to always like have like almost 90 assists at times.
Yeah.
At some point, so I feel like it's underappreciated a lot. Like, because it's like people talk about it when they're watching games, looking at people's stats, but it's like it should be recognized as the NHL award if all of that is like what the goals and overall points are. Because like.
They probably don't have it because, like you said, like secondary assists are going to count towards that as well. So that it comes to a point where if you're like a guy on a really good line and you're getting a lot of assists that might not be like you might not be responsible for, then they might be like hesitant to give an award for something like that. Like either they might just have like what an NBA style assist is, where it's like you have to directly pass the puck to the guy for him to score for it to count as an assist.
And I've thought about that too, and so it's like, but to go off that, the league, a lot of people now, whether it's like league analysts or just like fans or whatever, they're all into like those very advanced stats and all of that. And so like, if they have the ability to do that, why don't you just start tracking primary assists, and then you could do something for like primary assists as like an award or something too. Because like, you could be someone who's always kind of benefiting off of that and stuff too, with a secondary assist. But if you want to be technical with that, like for all the people with the advanced stats, that gives them another thing to fulfill like their hobby of looking at those. And it's like you can kind of show like this person's always setting the play up right to the guy. So it's like that would be, I think, kind of a cool way to show things. Because like if you take the most points overall, like that's where you factor in goals and assists overall. It's like you could have a lot of secondary assists, or like you could have a lot more goals and then some assists that kind of just combine to give you more points overall than say someone who had way more assists than you and then even like maybe just like 10 less goals, but like they literally like missed out on the stuff by 1 point and stuff. So I think it would be nice if it got its own award, just to kind of start recognizing like the playmaker with like all of the primary assists and stuff. So I think that's something that the league could definitely add, because I think it's something that would recognize a lot more players in some ways or another.
Yeah.
And so I know we got a little off with talking about those two, like worrying about like records and stuff like that, and like talking about player caliber and like the rumors, like since Pittsburgh was kind of struggling with trades and stuff too. We're getting close. We still have over a month, but April 12th is the trade deadline, and already we're seeing the annual what's going to happen with Jack Eichel type thing in Buffalo. And so there's a lot of stuff going on right now. I saw recently, while I'm looking at that site, Puck Empire on Instagram, shout out, Predators defenseman Ryan Ellis is going to miss 4 to 6 weeks with an upper body injury now. I think that's going to completely change their season even more so, because I think it was the site called The Atlantic, hockeynews.ig I looked at it from, or someone at that site had ranked Matthias Ekholm, who was the second pairing defenseman, but arguably like the second or third best on that team behind Yossi and Ellis. He's like ranked as like the highest trade bait candidate right now because of Nashville. Are they going to be sellers? Are they going to hold on to that team? Now with Ellis out, this is really going to test that question. Like, are they going to hold on to Ekholm just because like they want to have someone, or now is at the point like our season is not that one player makes a difference, but it's like that's one of the shutdown guys. And so if they're going to be letting up a lot more goals and losing a lot more games, this might make them a completely like wild, like barn fire kind of like yard sale kind of trade deadline for the Predators. So I think that's definitely going to change things completely, because even like they haven't talked about it a lot, but a lot of people are speculating like Forsberg could be on the move too. It's essentially everyone but like Rene because of no trade clause, like we talked about last time, and then Yossi, and then Ellis. But Bruins are also linked to Ekholm because we've had some struggles. Like Lozon's out, at minimum 4 to 6 weeks now.
Yeah, because he broke his hand.
And then Zaboral's kind of day to day with some things. Like I think he was back in the lineup or not, but he's like kind of okay. Miller, I didn't see what happened to him again.
He's back skating, I think, with Krejci. I don't know what's up.
Grizzlick just started skating again too, and so
I don't think, to be honest, I don't think we're hurting for defensemen that bad. We got a young core. I like the guys. They've shown like even though they're not a ton of experienced guys, that they can do a pretty good job so far, given our wins to loss ratio for the season. Like you can tell that like having a young core and having a pretty good defensive core does make a difference. I feel like if we're going to trade for something, we should look for maybe a little bit more of depth scoring.
Definitely.
That's more of my like area that I'm looking into for like checking on who's going to be moving where. Like if we could get a Forsberg, I'd be okay with getting a Forsberg.
Oh, for sure. Like,
if we don't like give up half of the half the team to try to get him,
that's what's difficult. I think with Boston.
Yeah, I like where the team is at right now. I'm one of those guys where it's like, if it ain't broke, got to fix it.
Yeah.
I don't think the Bruins are broke by any means. I don't think that you should go out and go trade away 2 really good players just to get one. I think like the whole chemistry that they have going on in Boston right now is just, it's good, and I wouldn't mess with it.
I agree.
Not too much, at least.
I'm the same way. Like if it's not broke, don't fix it. But I was looking at an article, I was just reading it, I think leisurely yesterday, and someone was saying like, are the Bruins great? No, but they're good. I'm like, what are you talking about? And like they're looking at the technicalities and stuff. It's like the Bruins are ranked 25th at 5-on-5 goals per game, and it's really the power play that's been helping carry them. And like, yeah, that has been our forte for the last few years. And I remember last show we were talking about, would we rather a power play skilled defenseman like Krug, or would we rather a shutdown guy that helps win games?
Yeah.
You want both, I think, actually, which is not fully a great answer to the question, but it's changing things, especially now. Like we do need that scoring. And speaking of Nashville defensemen linked to the Bruins, we had just, 2 days ago now?
Yeah.
Claimed defenseman Jerry Tenorti off waivers from Nashville. He's 6'6", 3 inches shorter than Chara was for us, but he's still a big guy, and I think they haven't decided when he's going to play yet because of COVID protocol switching.
I think he
divisions.
just got off it today.
I think so too. I think he finished like all his stuff, and I think the speculation is that Cassidy might lean to play him with McAvoy, simply because McAvoy is usually paired with a shutdown guy, and he's the offensive movement. So like if you have that big body, Lozon's not massive, but he's kind of like a taller kind of body guy, and that's who they've been playing with Mac. So I think it would make sense to try him. Maybe not right off the bat. Maybe if Grzelcyk's coming back, you put him with McAvoy to kind of.
Well,
they have chemistry.
It'd probably help with McAvoy's penalty problem that he's been having like recently too, because now he doesn't have to act like a tough guy on the ice. Now that Chara is gone, he can have some dude get his back.
And Nick Ritchie's there. Look at that awesome fight with Brendan Lemieux, literally at the end of the game on Sunday.
To yank his jersey over his head so he stopped getting decked.
Yeah, and so I think I'm with you with the secondary scoring. It's just like. The way I see it is, I'm hoping that whatever's wrong with Kasha is going to get solved really quick and he can get back in the lineup, because I think he's kind of both the outlier and the X factor, if that makes sense. Because if he's not going to pan out, I think again, and I'm not one to give up on players easy and stuff. Like, I'm still Team Bjork. I hope we keep him, but we might lose him in the fantasy draft, or not fantasy draft, the expansion draft. I'm obsessed with fantasy hockey right now. That's why.
Yeah.
And so we can talk a little bit more maybe next week with Vitor about the whole expansion and like how we think Seattle is going to go about picking unexposed or the exposed Bruins players and who the Bruins decide to protect and stuff. But getting back to Kasha, it's like he is a proven he can be a middle he can be an elite threat when he's healthy, but the problem is he's been inconsistent because of injuries and stuff, and it seems like that's always kind of a scare, with when you handle certain players. And the thing I think is, I don't think his. Do you know what his salary cap is? Is he at 2.8 or something?
I feel like it's around there.
Yeah, because he's not. I think he's going to be.
He also hasn't scored a goal yet with us, has he?
He still has not. He had, I think, a certain amount of assists through whatever, the 6 regular season games and then the playoffs, and it was working a little bit, and it seemed like he was just getting close to finding that chemistry with.
He had a lot of
Krejci.
chances during the playoffs. There. If you see, he had a ton of breakaways, he had a ton of really nice plays in the playoffs. I was always waiting. It was just it always seemed like that next game around the corner was going to be the one, and it never ended up happening. I was always really disappointed in that.
I feel you, literally frustrating is the perfect word for it. And so he's going to be a restricted free agent at the end of this season, because he was on a 3-year deal which averaged 2.6.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be the test, because yes, because if I'm reading the thing right, it says 2021 free agency. So I think with him, it's that might be the thing where it's do we just, for one, move him so that we have one less player to worry about wanting to protect or need to protect because of the expansion draft coming up, which is going to change things too. But do we just trade him now since it hasn't seemed to work out? Just because give it a little bit more time, sure. But we have about 40-ish days before the deadline to trade people, and so it's if it's not going to work out, I think in that span of time, this is where you may just have to kind of bite the bullet that you might have lost that David Backes trade, and really just use it for salary cap dump purposes if Kasha can't work out. Because
I consider that a win.
Yeah, it's still a win, because but we give up a first round pick though too. So I think it's a little easier if Kasha plays decent, but he's been too hurt to even be able to tell it all right now.
Well, I still think having that salary cap moved around and getting Backes out of there. I love Backes though.
Oh, I did too.
I did.
Real good kind of definition of what a Bruin should be.
Yeah. I felt bad seeing him go, but I also felt good about moving the cap around.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think at this point with Kasha, see if he gets back, see if he can play healthy. But if you can trade him, maybe get rid of Bjork too. If you can get someone good for those guys, plus a pick throw in there or something, I'd say go for it, because this is probably one of the best years the Bruins are looking to be having coming up to win it all.
Yeah, and it's with the
plus you got
aging core,
aging core plus Bergeron, Marchand, and Pasternak's contracts all go up within the next 2 years.
I guarantee you though, 2 of them, the ones that aren't named Pasta, will even take pay cuts. Martians already talked about how their team mentality first in Boston. They want to have a nice team. They recognize they could have got more money somewhere else, and so Pasta is definitely going to go through the roof. He's going to be probably getting like 10 mil.
Yeah.
Honestly, like because if Panarin,
well,
Panarin's great and he's already getting like between 10 and 12 like average, but I think it's $12 million per year type thing. So he'll go up, and it's just like, yeah, I think that like you're right. It's like right now because like the way the contracts are, and not to compare it to Pittsburgh again too, but I think both these teams kind of have a similar thing going. Like right now, it's like you have your teams that have won, your core players that have won are still there, but it's like they're all getting old, and it's like how much window is left to win. And so like last year people were like, oh, that was the Bruins' last chance. Now that Char's gone, but I mean, Char is one player, and he was a huge part of obviously of the whole Bruins organization. He will have his number retired within after he retires, like probably immediately after by the team whenever the their grace period ends. And so I think this might determine if we have any more time left or not, depending on how far we get.
So I think so my concern isn't about as much having these guys resign. I think that all of them want to be Bruins for their careers.
Agreed. Yeah.
Like Marchand, regardless of how he is on the ice, I don't see him like he doesn't strike me as the guy who's like, oh, pay me or I'm out, you know?
No, like I said, he proved that talking about the whole.
He's also won a cup too, so it's not like he has to go anywhere else chasing it. Same with Bergie. The only thing that's like that worries me is Bergie's getting up there in age too, and
35, almost 36 now.
Yeah,
he'll be 36 in July.
And when his contract starts running out, the whole retirement thing is what I think about more when it comes to that, which is like what I said, kind of something that scares me a little bit about him. But and Pasta, he's also gone on record before. I don't know if you ever seen the clip of the interview with him where a reporter's asking him, he's like, why don't you aren't you concerned about like shopping around, looking somewhere else where you could probably get signed for more money? And Pasta just looks him dead in the eyes and he goes, I don't play hockey for money.
Yeah.
And it's he strikes me as like a guy, like it's been his dream ever since he was a kid. He was dirt poor. He comes up, becomes a star in the NHL, leads the league in goals last year with Ovechkin.
Yeah, tied with him.
And I mean, he's a Bruin. And I think that whatever they give him or whatever they think he deserves, like based on the way he's been performing, because obviously they're going to give him what he deserves.
Yeah.
Because he needs that. You need to pay the man for what he's been doing, because he has been doing things that Ovechkin's doing for a little over half of what Ovechkin's making, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, Ovechkin's making, like, what? I think he's making, like, $10.5 million a year. Pasternak is making, like, $6.75 million a year. I'd say that's a pretty good deal for having a leading goal scorer in the league on your team. So
yeah, and I'm trying to, as we're talking about this, the reason that, getting back to like that whole Backus deal, it is a win when you think about it, because like that opened up space to start the contract renewals with McAvoy and Carlo, which again are bridge deals, which are going to cost those guys more money and stuff. And so if we're looking right now, it's getting a little scary, like you were saying, because 2 years from now is where Bergeron's going to be a free agent. 3 years, it's going to be Pasta. It's actually going to be 5 from Marshy from now.
Yeah.
So he's got like the most time out of all of them. So I mean, if we look at all the guys who, let's say in 2 years, what it's potentially going to be, it's going to be like in 2 years, because Carlo is one of the guys that's going to be a restricted free agent.
Yeah.
I can't tell if the way this site's worded, if it's 1 year remaining after this, or just this is the 1 year remaining. I forget. But
I assume it's going to be 1 year after this.
Yeah, so that's what I'm going off of that too. So if we base it like that, it's going to be players like Bergeron, Jake Debrusk, Carson Kuhlman, Jack Studnicka, Charlie McAvoy, and Jakub Zaboral that all have contracts ending in the same year.
Yeah.
And if you look at, and a year prior to that is going to be players like Krejci, Rask, Kasha, Carlo, and stuff, and Halak. And so it's, I think that is actually for this year, I actually think, because Seattle's coming in the fall of this coming year, 21-22. And so, because I think, I could be wrong again. It's just, I hate when websites are worded weird, but regardless,
I think it might
whatever
be
year
next
it may, whatever year it may be.
Yeah, Rask is another year after this one.
Yeah, so it is a year out in that sense. So whatever year it is regardless. Each of those like represented years are when those players are going, and so it's like Kasha doesn't have that big of a deal, so like it's fine if he stays. But here's the question: it's like you start trying to figure out both to win now, but for the future too, because it's like we need to keep both McAvoy and Carlo, and like I forget who it was. There was this weird. You probably saw it by now. There's this like must have been a local like talk radio guy or something who was saying that he would trade Pasta over Carlo, no question, for I think it was like Eichel or someone, and I was just like, I understand the importance of Carlo because don't trade him like 100%, but like to say it that just made no sense. Like I don't know what he was thinking there, and so like, but again, because if anything, that makes all the people who don't like Carlo or like Pasta way more, make their value of Carlo drop even more because that guy's like kind of idiotic sayings and stuff. But like they're all essentially saying, oh, like everyone's tradable except McAvoy in the back end. I don't think Carlo is. I mean, look, he's finally becoming a leader. He's wearing the A now that Krejci and Miller are both out. Because normally I think Miller would if he wasn't hurt and stuff. But I mean, he I think is just as important on that back end as McAvoy in a different way because it's like McAvoy is like he's the face of the defense. He's the one who's able to defend well and like has the offensive touch.
An
but
amazing
even Carlo,
two-way defenseman, yeah.
Yeah, and even Carlo now though, he's for a big body, he's getting really good with jumping up on the rush, like hopping over the blue line in the neutral zone and setting a play. He becomes like a fourth forward at that point when he enters the zone with the puck. And I think that kind of I started noticing that when we especially in the Stanley Cup final against the Blues, like he started using that a little bit more. And
wasn't he? I think he was the only one that scored in that Game 7 too, wasn't he?
It was Grizzly.
Oh, it was Grizzly. Never mind.
Yeah, no, I think Carlo had scored Game 6. Yep. It was the one that put us up to force Game 7. And so, but I think both of them are like you need both of them. Like I get if you're trying to bring in a huge, like you were saying, like do you want to get two good players to get a great player? It's like remember a few years back when everyone's like, oh, Carlo's like in talks to bring in Gabriel Landeskog when he was a little bit like it was like what 3 years ago now I think. As he was like a second-year defenseman at the time, and I was just like, even then I was like, I don't know about that. Like, but yeah, you'd have a great winger to play with Krejci. It'd be awesome. But and the tricky thing is too, our prospect pool isn't the best. Like our good prospects are the ones who are kind of like playing right now, like Lozon, like Bjork, like Zaboral, Studnicka, and then Coleman a little bit after that and stuff as well too. And so it's just like a lot of people keep saying Jake Debrusk is like the one that's going to be the trade piece if we make a move. And how do you feel about that?
I like Jake Debrusk. I really like him as a player.
He's got passion and heart.
He's got heart, and he has like he's kind of streaky with his goal scoring though. Is something that kind of bugs me. The other night, I don't know if you saw it. It was first he got hit really hard going into the offensive zone, and then like probably like half a minute after that he got hit with a puck to the face, I think, so he was having a rough game.
I might have missed it. I think I saw him actually hit someone in the boards that could have been borderline boarding. Yeah. But I didn't see the
Oh no, it was I felt bad for him. I was like, oh, this guy's having a tough game. But
tough year. I think he's got just one goal against New Jersey. Granted, he missed some time, obviously.
Yeah. But I think overall with DeBrusk, it's tough because, like I said, he's kind of streaky with his offense, and it's not for like lack of a good line mate. He's been with Krejci, who is probably one of the preeminent like playmakers in the league, and we have him on our second line. And you have Krejci with them. You have they haven't had a good good consistent right wing for a while.
And sometimes they even throw, to cut in real quick, they sometimes throw Debrusk on the Berge line when there's no production. But yeah, I mean, go back to what you're saying about that.
But it's like I said, it's tough. Like he can be streaky with his goal scoring. He can be inconsistent with his offense. He plays hard. He does a pretty good job when he's on the ice. It's not like with Kasha, like I said, it's not for like a lack of chances. It's just been kind of like shitty situations for him where he's been like he's had a breakaway or he's had like a clean look, and it's just like an unbelievable save or just an unfortunate circumstance where he just doesn't get it, you know?
Yeah, it's tough because like I love him too and stuff, and it's just like difficult where like he is streaky, and it's not to the same degree, but like last week we talked about how, especially like you and Vitor were talking about your frustration with Heinen, how he can never put it in the back of the net, which is kind of streaky with that inconsistency. Different way of it, obviously, but like, he was consistent with assists, which was good. But like Debrusk, like he's a shooter. He's not like a passer.
The thing with Heinen, though, where it's kind of different is you can see like the difference in the way that him and Debrusk like play.
Oh,
like,
yeah, right.
Heinen was a guy where it's like, if you see Heinen going into the offensive zone with the puck, you're pretty much turning it over.
Yeah, like he's more the stuff like I was saying, it's different to that degree, but like with having like cold and hot streaks. Like he would have a really like hot streak, and then he'd have a really cold streak.
Yeah, he just struck me as like unbearably average, and I just felt like moving him to get someone who could maybe get a little more production was like, you know. But I feel like, I don't know, I like Debrusk. I feel like holding on to him would be a good idea. Maybe getting rid of like a Carson Kuhlman or like a Anders Bjork or something like that. So I don't know.
Yeah, and
that's who I would trade if it was me.
If we're talking about like the iffiness with Debrusk, and then there's always, of course, like because we just started talking about Eichel briefly before we got into the Predators rumors with the Bruins, and then a lot of other stuff. Puck Empire on NHL on Instagram. They took it from a different journalist. I think it was like Fluto Shinzawa had the thing, but this Instagram account kind of summed it up, saying a source suggested it would cost the Boston Bruins at least Charlie McAvoy and Trent Frederick to acquire Jack Eichel. And that's the keyword, at least, and stuff. Because obviously, like, Eichel, in a year that McDavid wasn't there, would have been first overall, no question, and stuff. And so, but here's the thing for me. It's like, if you're a Bruins fan, you would love to have the local star on your team, obviously, because he would be the new face of the center position when Bergey's gone and stuff. But it's like, how much, if you're even interested in thinking about it at all as a Bruin, if you're the GM, what do you consider like putting their way, like for Eichel? Because obviously it would take a lot to bring him here. So is it A, even worth it, or B, what would you do to keep obviously McAvoy, because he should be way out of the question? And it's like, obviously, they'd be knocking for that, but the door would be locked. And so how would you go about this whole thing? Like, if you're trying to bring in a guy like that, do you actually just say you pass and go for a semi-star to bring in, or do you try and make it work with different pieces to bring him in? Like, do you include like a Debrusk and something like that with a lot other pieces?
All right, I'd pass on Eichel, to be honest. It doesn't really bother me if he's local or not. You have like a lot of stars that are from nowhere near where they are, but they're beloved by their team and by the local community, and they get involved like that. So, I mean, like that part doesn't really appeal to me. Like I could give less of a shit where Jack Eichel's from.
Yeah. Agreed.
2, he's not worth all those pieces to me. I don't think I think goes back to like what I said about the Leafs. It's not worth sacrificing all your defense and your defensive talent, and like your last line of defense before the goal, just to get like a little, maybe a chance for some goal scoring from a guy who you don't even know is going to click with the team, produce, or re-sign for some ridiculous amount. Like he's already making $10 million a year. That's something I don't want to bring into the team and then have to deal with shifting the cap around with that. And on top of that, I feel like his time with I feel like any player who's had their struggles with one specific team after committing to them, like a bad team like the Sabres, I feel like that ends up kind of ruining you as a player because you start thinking about me. And that's the worst thing that
Jeff
you can...
Skinner contract's tough.
Yeah.
Now that he's a healthy scratch after one goal through the whole stretch.
See, that thinking about me thing, I feel is what's going to kill Jack Eichel's like career moving on, because he's already like, well, you know, the Sabres suck. I kind of hate it here. I'm making a lot of money though, so I'm going to play for me. I'm going to score. I'm going to get my stats up, and then hopefully, if things go wrong, like things go bad enough, I'll be able to get traded, and I'll be able to move on from this place. But that mentality, once you get into it, I feel like sticks with you. Yeah. I feel like that's the deal with like Taylor Hall. Ever since he was with Edmonton, going to New Jersey, now he's in New Jersey, and he's like, man, I don't really like it here. They move him to Arizona. Or he got moved, right? Traded?
Yeah, traded him to Arizona because
he moves to Arizona.
Were stale.
And he has all these teams that he can go to. Boston's in the talks.
Colorado was like the favorite at the time. And
Colorado.
It made the most sense.
Yep. All these teams that he could have gone to, all these contenders that he could have wanted to go to, he doesn't have the fight in him anymore, I don't think. Because he sees Buffalo put up an $8 million contract and like wave it in front of his face.
With Eichel as his center. Like I think that was a lot of the enticingness.
But again, you have a Sabres team that's had Eichel for I don't know how long. Is one player...
About 4 years? Oh, a little bit more than that. Since 2015.
Is one player really going to make a difference for that whole team?
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to compare the two players, but I mean, take the first and second overall picks of Eichel's draft, McDavid and Eichel. Yes, McDavid is a lot different than Eichel. They're both great talents. McDavid is the new face of the league, especially once Crosby's completely gone. But I mean, even with non-playoff teams, McDavid has had crazy numbers. Eichel has had like great or good numbers with a bad team, but not insane numbers. I mean, he has 351 points over 371 games. So that's less than half a point per game. Not less than half. Less than a full point a game per average. But he has a minus 67 because of a bad team that struggles with consistent scoring depth and defense. And like this year, sure, he has 14 points in 17 games. 12 of them are assists, -7. And so like what you were saying, it's like it's so funny when all these players, such as like Taylor Hall or like Jerome McGinley, especially, that one still hurts me to this day, where they're like, oh, I want to go to a contender, and then they end up with this team that is not a contender at all, but like the team wears a mask like, oh yeah, we're not a contender, but we're on the verge of being able to break through. And
we're going to give you a lot of money.
Yeah, that's the key.
We're going to give you a shitload of money.
It's like, why? I understand that you want to work, like, maybe it was just because it's like, yeah, now between maybe Eichel and myself, if I'm talking as Hall, both our numbers can finally start to rise. But it's like, if you have the chance to play with a star player because you want to go there, by all means, go ahead. But like the fact to pass on someone like even for Colorado, like I'm surprised he didn't do a 1-year deal there. And then with the whole thing with they have $8 million in cap space. Like if I'm a player, I would much rather take. If I'm of that caliber, I would even take a $5.5-6 million deal for 1 year in a contender, see what happens, and if we're close to working but it doesn't work, then maybe I'll re-sign for a little bit longer with them, or then compared to going to a tanker with a massive contract. It's just like, yeah, these guys, I mean, at the end of the day, these guys are still getting paid millions. It's just it's sad. Like you kind of throw it around like chump change when you talk about them. It's like, oh, like should he be being paid $6 million or $9 million? It's like that's just an insane amount of money anyway for a year. But I mean,
I think what he was going out and looking for was he was looking at he wanted to make a certain amount. I'm assuming he wanted to make around $6 or $7 million a year on a team that was a contender. And I think he wanted. Is he a left wing?
Yes.
Okay, so what is Landeskog? Left wing?
Landeskog's also left wing.
Okay, so you have a guy like Gabriel Landeskog who's been playing with Nathan MacKinnon his entire career.
Been there since before MacKinnon, I think, even because.
Well, I'm talking about
but like for
the entirety of McKinnon's career.
Yeah.
So you have a guy. It's a lot like the Line A with the Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele thing. Have you heard anything about that?
No. What?
Oh, so I guess one of the big deals about the Line A wanting out of Winnipeg thing was he wanted to be right wing one.
Yeah,
and,
I thought I heard those like rumors he was getting like bullied or something.
Well, those are I looked that up. Those are produced by like a Swedish paper, anyways, and they're that like if you go back, their track record is just always like
false,
kind of catering to like the Swedish players and making their situation seem so bad.
Yeah,
but it was like the deal was that Line A wanted to be right wing one. Wheeler and Scheifele were both like, sorry, dude, like.
They got that chemistry.
We played way better together than we play with you. Yeah. So we feel like it's a better idea to have you be like second right wing.
Yeah.
So Taylor Hall is probably goes into negotiations like, listen, I've played on too many shitty teams. I want to play on a contender. I'm left wing number 1. I'm first line left wing. And you're going to pay me $7 million at least. Or else I'm walking. So when you take all that into consideration, you probably have the GM going to like Landeskog and McKinnon and being like, all right, this guy wants to sign with us, but he wants $7 million and he wants your spot. And they're probably both like, for this guy, we're doing all right already. We don't need this guy to mess up the chemistry, take up a huge cap hit, and ruin what we have going on here. Like, that's not what you need. So when he goes through all of that with all those teams, and then he gets to Buffalo, and Buffalo's like, yeah, we'll put you as top left wing, and we'll pay you $8 million. We're just this close to getting a team together that'll finally start winning games, and you could be the piece. And when he sees that $8 million contract, and he gets that spot that he wants to play on, he's like, all right, this is my team. This is where I'm going. And I feel like it was a shock to everyone. Were you shocked when he went to the Sabres?
Yeah, I thought it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make sure that this thing doesn't
time out,
die or stop recording too. So
yeah,
but because I think there's a timestamp, but it looks like it's good, so we'll keep going, I guess, until it dies, or we'll keep it recording.
Yeah,
but yeah, I was shocked. I mean, I think the 3 teams that were kind of having the most interest were like Colorado, Nashville, and then like one other, and then Buffalo started picking up.
Yeah,
and then I was kind of shocked about, okay, maybe this is enough to get Buffalo to get a little bit better in the standings, but I mean, with how it's been, I didn't think it was going to be like enough to be like, oh, a contender. Like, no, not even close. Like, it might have put them in the place where they're like close to sneaking in, depending on how the rest of like the lower teams in the East play. But because like those concerns about is Pittsburgh going to drop off completely, is like, are the Islanders going to rise? Or like all the other teams kind of going to do, like, what are they going to do other than like Boston, Washington, and Philly at the point? And so, yeah, I was shocked with it. I think it's just, if you want to play with that type of player like Eichel, because like that's who we started talking about, it's just like, yeah, like maybe it works, but so far it's not working.
Yeah.
And so if we want to go back to my answer with what you were saying about the whole, to tie it back into that whole Eichel thing, I'm with you. I don't think we should go after him. I don't think it's smart. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's wrong to call and ask just to get an idea of what that caliber player's worth.
Yeah.
So that then you'll be like, oh, okay, so now we will use this knowledge to talk with some other teams about like who else we can pick. Like,
you realize how much you're going to cost, and then you just take the phone and you hang it up, and you take the Buffalo Sabres number and you just throw it in the shredder and never call it again.
Yeah, and so it's just, I'm trying to think. Like, it's so hard. It's so easier being a GM of the fantasy, the franchise mode in NHL 21 or NHL 20 than actually being a real GM, because it's just like the market like varies like a lot and stuff. And so,
well, it tells you like what team is like, the team is programmed to look for like, oh, we want picks because we're a tanker, or we want
future like prospects,
yeah,
or
we
like
want prospects,
young players
or stuff like that. Yeah, so it's like, it's not as easy as that in the NHL. It's like you have a very randomized, almost like every season you're not really sure about how everything's gonna go. Plus, like, chemistry is gonna be like interesting between guys, because like the Eichel and Hall thing, I feel like they're both very big personalities in their own team.
Yeah. And
I feel like that's going to interfere a little bit with any team they go to, regardless of if they're not like the number one, you know. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's just, we'll see what happens with the whole Eichel thing, the whole Hall thing, because he's only a 1-year deal. Yeah, like Laine, expiring contract. Hall, we don't know if he's interested in staying in Buffalo at one point, they said, but he also might leave. So it's just like, where's he going to go after this? Like, does Colorado make sense finally for the coming year and stuff, where that they still have that insanely cheap McKinnon deal, and then all the other things kind of considered. But then at that point, if you sign him long term, then you have to worry about Cale Makar, his entry-level deal kind of ending and stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's that challenge, too. And so it's just like the gambles teams have to make. Like, yeah, I think if you're the Bruins, you got to manage trading a player that may be good with a little bit higher of a deal, or on like anywhere $3.5 million up, to move someone. So that's maybe the logistics of why people think Debrusk might be the one that makes sense to go and things. But here's one thing.
Mhm.
I think because it was one of the best like in NHL history of a year after a free agent signing, like the Tavares having the 42 goals that first year signing with Toronto, and like dropped off a little bit, but he's still like prevalent on that team with like good scoring. But like as much as I was so mad that the Bruins were one of the final 5 to talk with him, but just didn't get him, at the moment I'm happy it didn't work out because I mean look, like we still would have had to pay him minimum probably $9.
Yeah.
And then that would have screwed us over with the whole Carlo and McAvoy, and then worrying about the future with like balancing that with Pasta. And it's like, oh, do we have to trade like one of those? We would have to trade one of those 3 essentially to save space. Well, and then so it worked out in that sense. But then comes the question of, I want to keep Krejci because he's one of our core guys. He's getting older though. His contract will be expiring soon as well. And so at that point it becomes, do you keep him? He'll probably take a pay cut, obviously. But it's like, do you keep him or do you try and go after the huge fish in free agency to bring in like a big, like decent caliber second line center type thing, like, or a winger, and then you move Coyle up to the second line. And so it's like, even a guy like Forsberg, I feel like is out of the question for Boston right now, based off like contract fitting. Because we're at about
what he's worth too.
We had like $4 million in cap roughly, maybe a little less, maybe a little more.
Well, outside of cap shit, you also have to deal with like what this guy is worth anyway.
Yeah,
like,
and if the chemistry would match up. And so, I think definitely, maybe next show we can kind of have like mock, or close one of the shows closer to the trade deadline. Maybe we can make like a mock trade deal that we think the Bruins need to take, or like 1 or 2 trades we think they need to take before the deadline on April 12th and stuff. And so I think, a lot of that is just going to vary. I think this year more than others, I mean, trade deadlines can like vary. I mean, last year it kind of made a huge difference. Tampa Bay like meant business with it.
Yeah.
And like all the teams around us, except for us kind of. And so like we'd had the Kasha deal like a few days prior and stuff. And then we'd had like the Nick Ritchie one too, which right now that's working out and stuff. At the time it wasn't like last year, but it's just which teams are going to make a big splash this time around and stuff. And it's like, do we see a similar effect where like these teams that should be in the top 3 adding to the team to ensure that they're better than the team that's trying to fight to get into that 4th playoff spot, or do we see them kind of sit pat with the teams they have and then the teams below them making bigger hauls with like all the lower end teams that are going to be sellers? And so I think this because it's a very different year with the divisions, I think this trade deadline is going to be very unique in a way. And so,
well, how is it going to the league is the league going to go back, I'm assuming, to its regular divisions next season?
Hopefully, we'll find out. It depends on if like COVID stuff changes a little bit more.
That could affect the dynamic between like what trades you want to make, because if you're not
quarantine too.
well, also if you're not a division rival this year and you go back to the old divisions, then you might be trading one of your better players to a division rival that you're going to be facing next year.
Right.
So
that's good thinking in the long run too. And it's like, and the whole thing too, like this year, if you trade out a division or out a conference, especially like the North Division is screwed in the sense where it's like that's across national boundaries, and so
yeah, so you're not
you
getting
trade a player,
for 2 weeks.
He has to sit for like 2 weeks, and so in quarantine, and so it's like if you're going to make that deal, it's like because you need them to help your team kind of fight in the final like week and a half into the playoffs or towards the end of the regular season. It's like, do you make that trade now so that you're ready for that time when you would normally trade for them in a given year, or how do you like? It's tricky, and I think that's what's going to make it very unique in that sense. Like Nashville, I think right now is like kind of the standout team that's going to make those moves. But the last little team we can kind of talk about before traveling is like the whole kind of Montreal like stuff that's kind of been. Claude Julien got fired a few days after we had our last show. Mm-hmm. They've been struggling in their last little while. I think the wildest stat that I've seen lately is based off calendar year stuff. But I mean, Philip Deneau, who was having a really good last season, starting to emerge for Montreal. A lot of people thought he was going to be like the new first line center. Then Nick Suzuki took over in the playoffs, and then people were like, oh, shoot, is Deneau like mad and he's going to leave now and not want signings and stuff? And like trade talks have kind of gone down. But this post was from 2 days ago, so it's different now.
Yeah.
At the time, 2 days ago, it was 364 days since his last goal. And so now it's a year and a day since his last goal in a calendar, like this overall thing. And so it's like, at this point last year, like this guy was like they thought the new first line center and stuff. And so it's like, they're having a lot of kind of concerns right now, Montreal and stuff. Like, so it's like, are we going to see them continue the sludge? And are they going to become sellers at the deadline?
So here's the thing. I thought Montreal had probably one of the best off seasons out of every single team in the league this year. I love picking up Josh Anderson. I would have if I was the Bruins, he would have been the guy I would have been going for like that. Same with Tyler Toffoli. Like, these are guys that are maybe not going to be your top line, but they're going to be your depth scoring. They're going to be your grit with Josh Anderson, who you saw it in that playoff series against Columbus. What was it, 2 years ago now?
The second round of 2019. Yeah.
Yeah. So we played them in the second round of the 2019 playoffs, and that guy was you saw him all over the place, throwing hits, scoring, being on the ice. Like, it was like playing against someone like that. Those are the kind of guys you notice. And I don't know if maybe the Bruins weren't willing to offer up what Columbus wanted for him,
because they were interested in him hugely.
Yeah.
They really wanted him. So yeah, like
he was one of the guys I was definitely looking at. Same with Toffoli, but obviously Montreal gave Columbus what they wanted and made themselves interesting enough to Toffoli to get them both to go there, and they've been both doing really well. Like, a lot of people slept on Josh Anderson because he was hurt last year, so they looked at his stat line and they were like, oh, his stats suck.
Yeah, I think they were looking at like his injury history too with concussions.
Yeah,
because I mean, poor Vancouver. Like, friggin' Toffoli's owning them now with. He has like so many goals against them.
I think he has 6 or 7 at this point.
And I think I think he is on that first line with like whoever. I got to look at their lines closer, but like, the Josh Anderson deal has worked out immensely for them, and for Columbus, it has not worked out as much for Domi. Like, he went a while without any points. Now he finally got he's getting some, but like, it's still not to the level that. And Anderson's dropped off a little bit. He's kind of like cooled off since that hot start. But I agree with you. I thought they had the best off season. Like, they were like,
they made huge signings. Like,
and they weren't like insane, like huge, like contractually. Well, Anderson one was
huge for
6 years at like $6 million. I think.
Huge for what they need on the team is what I'm more thinking of instead of like money wise. Yeah,
like difference making.
Because like, other than ever since you lost Pacioretty, like who's your big name guy on Montreal?
For a while, like in the like kind of fading seasons, it was Gallagher for a little bit, but then he's kind of dealt with some things and also kind of like dropped a little bit. So now it's like
Tatar.
And then they traded him to Vegas.
Yeah.
And stuff. And so no, he's still with them. Sorry.
No, I'm pretty sure
they got him from Vegas. That was a brain fart and a half.
I just remember the videos, the two Canadians fans that they're just Thomas Tatar freaking out over the guy.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, he's with them. He's kind of dropped off a little bit too. So it's like, on paper, it's like their team looks a little bit better than it has. Like, and like Jeff Petrie like is dominating. Shea Weber is like still present and having a good factor. So that's a good 1-2 punch on defense. But it's just like that. I think if they keep going on a tank, like as much as they just like brought in Anderson and Toffoli, I think.
Well, do you think it's really?
They could be sellers, and Bergevin can lose his job. Like, because I think he's on the hot seat. Montreal's like kind of. With their media especially, they are always hockey crazy. And so
what do you think? Is it really a coaching issue? Because I thought they were having a pretty good season. Like, they're the second in their division. So do you think it's really a coaching issue or like a team issue?
I don't know what it is.
Because they fired both the head coach
and one of the assistants.
And the assistant head coach.
Yeah. Which means one of the other assistants is still there, which is odd.
So it kind of strikes me as maybe we're not hearing the whole story as to what the deal was with the team, because I feel like you're not going to clean house like that in the middle of a season while you're the second in your division unless you have a reason for it.
Yeah.
You know?
And they like went from second to like fourth in a span of like a few losses, which I think is what concerned it. But I mean, I thought it was kind of a little like Really?
But again, like I said, like second to fourth, that happens.
Yeah, it does.
Especially in the middle of the season.
And how early it is. Yeah. So
But
I agree with you. It was kind of shocking.
that's not a fire the assistant and head coach type, shift. Maybe if you went from first to like sixth, or like drop 5 places to 2. I don't know.
And again, I mean, look at the Bruins had a couple off games,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't see anyone flipping out. And so, I mean, I think it's just because the expectations are so high in Montreal because they have kept missing or they've kept barely doing things, and so it's like they've had like the same like GM for a long time now. They've had like Julian for a few years, but not that long in hindsight. And so, yeah, it's like, what is actually going on behind those scenes? And it's like, I honestly think if stuff keeps happening, they will become sellers again.
Mm.
And maybe even, I think probably the only safe ones at this point are maybe not even, but like you would think the 2 new guys, Toffoli and Anderson, that they just signed are going to stay. And then Suzuki, I think, is probably like your other safe pick. Like I think almost everyone else at that point could be on the board and stuff. And so
that's assuming that Montreal can't find a way to turn it around.
Right.
But
That's
when
what,
you don't
if
have
it doesn't work.
like a legit head coach, then I feel like that gets tough. So,
Yeah.
Maybe you do see them move some of their guys. Maybe you see them move a couple like their older guys, not the newer guys they picked up. Yeah, maybe like a Tatar or a Gallagher or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, time's going to tell.
It'll be interesting to see what happens,
Yeah.
to say the least.
And within like the next coming week and a little bit longer, as we keep track of it throughout the season, we will see how these teams that are speculating all these rumors around them and garnering all this attention are going to go. But any final thoughts before closing?
I want to ask you something real quick because you brought up Seattle.
Yeah.
Seattle gets brought together next year. Who do you think is the front runner for Kraken team captain? Because I've had my own thoughts about this, and there's been like one person that all the evidence kind of points to is that they're going to take him, and
I think
based on his experience prior being a team captain, leading a few teams to some medals.
The War Road native, the local kid, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think if he's the one taking Mr. TJ Oshie, well, I think that makes sense too. I'm with you on that, but I don't think at the time, like, it all depends on who teams are willing to part with or who they want to protect, and depending on Seattle's, with Ron Francis at the helm, what their intentions are and like kind of what they want to build towards. If they want to be a faster, younger team, or if they want to be a team that can kind of impact like Vegas and win now in a way too. So
regardless
of
how fast and young you want to go, you're going to need some veteran guy. He's got some grit, goal scoring, leadership,
and they need to have at least the minimum salary cap to be a functioning team.
So I think picking Oshie makes the most sense. If Oshie does get picked for the Kraken, I will be getting his jersey. I'm
same.
putting that
those
out
jersey
right now.
colors are a great combo.
77 is an amazing number.
Yeah, I think it could definitely vary. Maybe even if it's just like maybe even whatever Bruin gets picked, if they're relevant on that team and they're not like the extra forward or extra D man, that might be a number I get too. But definitely, I think when we get Vitor back next week, maybe we'd start with something like that with our mock kind of opinions on who may or may not be the one picked from Boston to go to Seattle, and kind
or
of what
just who goes to Seattle in general, like what makes sense from each team.
Yeah, we could definitely kick that off next week for sure. I think what's making it an expansion type thing. So,
or maybe we could check that out after the trade deadline, or maybe one before and then one after. What makes the most sense from after the trade deadline?
Yeah, we'll definitely plan that too. I think that's a better idea. So, next week, all you watchers and listeners, we'll figure out what we're going to talk about with you, and we'll go from there. But otherwise, from that, we hope Vitor burping from the coffee right here, but hoping Vitor's back with us next week. Obviously, we're starting March now. It's March 2nd, and so a lot of busy college kid things right now, a lot of assignments due and stuff, and so it's getting to be a little bit busier times for us. And we were going to do a little bit shorter of a show today. I mean, it's only about 20 minutes shorter than it was last week, but I mean, it's still shorter to some degree, so we're going to keep trying to be as consistent whoever is available between the three of us when we can and stuff. There may be two of us on like today, or 3, but we will see what happens in the future. Otherwise, for all you other students that may be listening or watching, best of luck with the coming weeks and on the upcoming assignments due. And otherwise, with that, we are signing off here, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your week and enjoy the hockey that's forthcoming in the coming week. Take care.
Thanks for watching.